Hello everybody, hi, this is Mita, it's Mita speaking, your astrology journalist, because I break the news before the news even happen using astrology. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now looking at the retrograde Saturn, it is stationary today. It has gone stationary. Now, when it is stationary, it is preparing to move, backwards, or to seem like it's moving backwards. Now, that is retrogression. So, when it comes to Saturn, everything relating to Saturn will have to be revised, renewed, restructured, and that is, spanning from your employment to status, public status of people, authoritative figures, the whole structure of the authority. However, it also means that the social dynamics as well, because that's what Saturn represents as well. There could be obviously revised friendships when it comes to our relationships, as well as commitments when it comes to our personal and intimate relationships. So, as I mentioned prior in my video that I made, I think at the beginning of this month, regarding the period from the 16th until the end of the month, because I was also looking at the retrograde Saturn. I had mentioned that some people could cancel their engagement at this time, whereby you were engaged and then now you decide you no longer want to be engaged anymore, and some commitments such as marriage being undone. So however, because Saturn is retrograde, is making a retrograde in Pisces, it could also lead to eloping, whereby people make impulsive decisions to go and get married as quickly as possible without necessarily planning about it. I do see, because now we are looking also at the Mercury that is trine to this Saturn, which is with Neptune. Now with the Neptune factor here, I also do see many contracts being ignored, or people wanting to escape from their commitments and responsibilities at this time. Now remember, Neptune has been retrograde, has been going retrograde. So what it means is that even contracts that would have seemed unclear, they have been given another view, or another clearer view. However, now because it is Saturn being retrograde, then that could come into those contracts being undone finally, as a finalization. Because when we talk about Pisces, we are talking about the final sign, like the ant, and that's the cat, by the way. It's making its contribution. But anyway, when it comes to Mercury is also going to be going retrograde on the 18th of this month. So that will be giving even more undoing in many of the things that people have agreed on, even the governments, the contracts that have agreed on. They could at this time want to revise and go back and say, actually, I want this I want this part to be redone, this policy to be revised, and this relationship to be looked at again, or renewed as well. Because when we talk about the water signs, we also talk about renewal. So we could see a lot of renewal at this time as well in many aspects of our lives. However, in a specific manner, I do see also contracts relating to resources and being a matter of a question now. I do see a loss of young people, particularly after the 18th of June. I do see a loss of comfort, whereby people who were starting to be comfortable, and now that comfort or conveniences, they get removed at this time because maybe an authority figure says, they're not worthy to have them, and therefore they're being taken back. Or if they had been removed prior, now could be the time of reversing that contract. What I can think of is the policies in America whereby they removed some of the rights, from some people, and maybe now they could revise that and reinstate those access or those rights to the people. Now, communication-wise, things would be a bit rash and a bit direct with our urgency and anger and aggression. So that is what to be expected in terms of communication. I do see backstabbing, lots of backstabbing, and it would be through authoritative figures or by the authoritative figures in our lives, and decisions being influenced by emotions, because there's a lot of water energy around Saturn right now. So a lot of decisions would be influenced by emotions. We would see emotional outbursts, whether in our relationships or even in the public, whereby the parliaments, the government figures, they just make outbursts out of nowhere. Now, well, it is not out of nowhere, it is out of the emotions, but it would be more visible. I also do see people regarding their jobs or their commitments or the authoritative figures themselves cutting corners and looking for shortcuts to making quick gain or gaining friendships or gaining a real trust from their associates right now. So they wouldn't be following the rigid plans, the rigid rules, the strict rules. There would be a lot of cutting corners right now. But because Saturn will be retrograde until November, I am only looking at July for now. And then, of course, with every month, I will keep in mind of the retrogression, because we must remember that with transits, things don't stay the same. So it is impossible to treat this retrograde of Saturn as if it will remain the same throughout this period or this 4 months. So I definitely see strikes coming back, strikes and riots relating to jobs, relating to authority, relating to land, relating to laws. I see those strikes coming back. I do see at some point, some mob violence, I would say around the 30th or 20th, from the 27th, some riots coming up, mob violence, that is to be expected. And I do see that after the 16th of July, there will be a questioning of order or authority, or challenging the authority, challenging the authorities. So maybe other riots again at this time coming up, or a loss of a great leader after the 16th of July. Or if it's not a loss, it could also be an exposure, of what they've done. Something really big, like an exposure of a huge scandal. And there's also a possibility of one of the leaders being kidnapped, whereby they go missing, by being kidnapped, maybe by an enemies. There's a lot of war happening right now, and a lot of tactics and strategic things happening. So, and if that happens to a certain leader, like exposure, kidnap, or loss to life, it would be inflicted by a young person, and that young person would be sent or influenced or paid for by a foreign state or a foreign figure, right? So that is visible in the charts. I also do see that a certain media company would be implicated at this time. So either through their journalist, or their style of reporting, and they get implicated in that story as well. So that I see. I also do see that there could be with this leader, maybe this would be happening whilst they are at work, or maybe a health relating thing, whereby they get, we lose them because of a health problem. A great leader is lost because of their health problem, or is exposed, something relating to health, and those things. So that's the theme of what I'm picking up here, because Mars will be entering the Virgo sign. So when we talk about Virgo, we talk about work, we talk about health, we talk about loss of health, those type of Virgo themes, right? And now around the 27th, as I said, from the 27th to the 31st, and the 31st 30th being critical points, I do see at this time some violence and fight, some erratic fight, whereby it's something that is sudden. It's not going to be like the situation in Israel and Gaza, whereby they've been, whereby Israel has been attacking Gaza for a long time. So this one would be like sudden and mostly like erratic, right? And it would actually be a reversal of maybe diplomatic negotiations that have been happening, and then they reverse that through a violent or an arrogant, aggressive stance, right? I also do see that there could also be accidents like fires. How we've been seeing floods right now. So now we would expect fire or air accidents by air, instability such as this at this time. Now when it comes to retrograding planets, remember they retrograde in order to fix something. They don't retrograde for the fun of it. They have a purpose to fix something that was amiss, something that was not done properly, and now it needs to be done properly. So that is how we should accept, the retrogression of planets, the retrogression of planets, or the impact in our lives, that something must be fixed. And when it comes to Mercury, because it's going to be joining Saturn just a week after, it is obviously about contract, communication, negotiations, and regarding to homeland, family, and all these structures that give us some comfort. Now, when it comes to ascendants, that would be mostly impacted in terms of relationships. Like, let's say, for example, this is a composite chart. Of course, we would be looking at the water signs, because all of these movements would be happening on, or impacting mostly the water signs. And of course, Aquarius would be impacted at this time. Virgo definitely impacted as well. So these 5 people or ascendants would be mostly feeling what would be happening at this time. But then the other ones are obviously not excluded, from some of these impacts. But when it comes to those who are highly impacted, we are talking about Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, Virgo, Aquarius at this time. And when it comes to the Gemini, after the 16th, this is when, the Geminis could also feel a bit of this impact, because Mercury would be going, after the 18th, Mercury would be going retrograde at this time. And so, of course, Mercury is the lord of Gemini. However, because also Mercury is going retrograde in Cancer right now, or would be going retrograde in Cancer. Speaking of world leaders, that period of the 27th until the 31st, we could be expecting an announcement from King Charles or about King Charles at this time as well. So, something would be coming out from that camp. Everything is alleged, by the way. This is speculation. I'm just using astrology. Now we have to look at the condition of Venus with this retrograde Saturn, retrograde Mercury. What would be happening to our relationships? We do also know that Venus would be getting into Gemini on the 26th of July. So there's a lot of movements happening in July. And of course, our relationships, intimate relationships now are affected and will be affected now with retrograde Saturn at this time for July until the 26th. We would be having Saturn leaving the direct aspect or blessing over Venus. So that is why, or that is another reason why a lot of relationships could be falling apart right now, because they would be just be impacted by the Uranus that is with Venus, right now. But as I said, previously in my previous predictions or forecast, that Venus with Uranus gives a lot of instability, a lot of unusual things, and with Saturn leaving that area, Venus will not have a stability. Relationships will lack that sense of being stable. But remember, this is only for a short period of time, just until the 26th, right? So this obviously also goes towards families, whereby families are maybe having heated debates, arguments at this time, and particularly when when Mercury starts to go retrograde as well, a lot of domestic fights and battles, you know, it's just even like nationally, whereby political parties could be fighting, one political party against another political party, one tribe against another tribe, you know, within the domestic grounds, and not necessarily a foreign influence or a foreign fight, right? A lot of domestic problems, even with the flights. It would be like domestic flights that are not, you know, on schedule, or, you know, transportation within the borders, you know, a lot of upside down. So that is to be expected when it comes to Venus. Yeah. So for now, let me just say for now that, oh yeah, I will make a different video because I want to talk about the Mars in Virgo, because a lot of things have to be talked about, have to be analyzed. There's going to be a lot of movements and a lot of important movements that are going to change things around. Until then, I'll be into and ciao.